Welcome to the bold analysis. William Samoei Ruto and his deputy Rigathi Gachagua, with the National Assembly Majority Leader Ichun'gwa, flew this afternoon to Kericho for a project of launching a dam, but it was never about the dam. It was just a plan to hold a political rally in Kericho, or by extension, to hold a political rally in William Ruto's backyard. And I took keen interest in that political rally because I was really asking questions. Why exactly would the president hold a political rally at this critical time? And what will be the tone, or what is the objective of that rally? And listening to Ichun'gwa's speech, it is very clear that UDA is in denial that the crisis we are in as a country is not about Raila Odinga, but is about the cost of living. I listened to the speech by Ichun'gwa. When he was given a microphone, he was given the responsibility of responding to the voice of the Catholic Church. When Anthony Muheria came out and led a delegation of the Catholic clergy to call out UDA administration in the wake of the crisis that is now biting this country. And Ichun'gwa took that opportunity to profile the Catholic Bishop Anthony Muheria here.
Lakini pia wanashtumu polisi wetu kwa kulinda hiyo maisha na amani. Nataka niwaulize kwa heshima makasisi wetu. In the same breath that you condemn the police, we want to hear you condemn the violence being meted out on innocent Kenyans by the perpetrators of violence and bloodshed in Nairobi and in other towns in this country. Na ninawaheshimu viongozi wetu wa makanisa, akiwemo rafiki yangu Archbishop Muheria, ambaye najua ni rafiki ya Uhuru Kenyatta. I want to ask Archbishop Muheria, because President retired Uhuru Kenyatta is your friend, if you want peace to prevail in our country, speak to your brother, your friend, and your parishioner Uhuru Kenyatta, because he is the instigator of all this violence, including the schemes.
That speech, that statement was intentional, it was scripted, and it was planned to be so. I know that in an event, politicians normally do a brief first, so that what politician A will say is different from what politician B will say, and must also be different from what politician C will gonna say. So it is very clear that this information was very intentional, and it was organized for it to be so. And let me just say here that that political rally had some objectives. There are three objectives why William Ruto held that rally. The first objective that Ruto wanted to achieve is the photo of pulling crowds. You know, as the protest is going on, the public is consuming the information, and I think the agenda of the day has been set to be about the protest. And it's very clear that the masses are swinging towards Raila Odinga. And I know you would want a situation where perhaps there is some split screen of William Ruto and Rigathi Gachagua pulling a multitude in Kericho, while Raila Odinga and maybe some other team, there is a protest on the other end. So it was just damage control, if you ask me. The second objective of that was to project, William Ruto wanted to portray the fact that his administration is unmoved with the protest and is just continuing to work despite of the protest that is going on. And the third objective was they're now trying to get to the public to execute a handshake narrative that Raila Odinga is protesting simply because he wants a handshake. And the reason why the handshake narrative is being floated now, especially even to the residents of Kericho, they have realized that the mass action is penetrating even on William Ruto's zones. Last week, there was a protest in Uasin Gishu, Nandi, and even Kericho in some counties. So what they're trying to do is to float that handshake narrative so that it can scare people away. Now, I wanted to listen to other part of, I wanted to listen to the part, the second bit from Ichun'gwa, when he was talking about hitting the Catholic priests, the ones that have been speaking about the finance bill.
Their bishops are telling us that you must reveal the Finance Act of 2023. That it has put on the Kenyan people, especially the low-income earners, an unsustainable financial burden. I want to ask respectfully to our bishops, could you please pinpoint for us what sections of that Finance Act are laying an unsustainable financial burden on Kenyans? I am midwife the passage of that Finance Act in Parliament, and I can confirm to you, my honorable bishops, the Finance Act of 2023 is lessening the financial burden to the low-income earners and placing a bigger burden on the big earners in Kenya, like members of parliament, like presidents, retired presidents. You must now tell us, do you speak for the ordinary Kenyan who the Finance Act has lowered VAT on medication?
Now, one thing you can see there is clearly Ichun'gwa is asking the clergy to explain which parts of the finance bill is bringing a burden to Kenyans. And I'm just asking, do you think that question even the clergy, that question even a class 2 can understand? The 16% VAT has caused increase in the price of production, and that cost has been taken to the consumer. It's as easy as that. There have been other taxes, deductions, statutory deductions on NHIF has been revised upwards. The deductions on the finance bill, that has also eaten on disposable income. And there are many other taxes in it. Content creators, 5% deduction. So that question is there. In clear terms, there is something that Ichun'gwa is trying to deny. He's trying to say that finance bill do not have a problem. The argument that it has taken the burden from the hustlers to the powerful people or the people with finances, he's talking about former president, the president, MPs. Can you figure out, we are almost 50 million people. The 50 million people, how many people are earning beyond 100,000? Also, it's less than 30% of this population. So even how many former presidents do we have? Even if you were to give the burden of the 50 million of us to the former presidents, how many former presidents are still there? We only have one, Uhuru Kenyatta. We don't have any other former president. Members of parliament are less than 500. And members of parliament, how do you want to say that you've taken the burden from wananchi and given to people with money? Because MPs have all manner of allowances. The president and his deputy and the members of the executive, cabinet secretaries, they have all manner of funny allowances. The former presidents and the other leaders, that they are telling us they have taken the burden from hustlers to them, these fellows are the ones that are gobbling huge part of our budget in terms of recurrent expenditure. So, it is simply in denial. But I want to explain to you the anger, the raw anger that UDA is having with the Catholic clergy. I want to explain that for you very clearly. Kindly subscribe to our channel And in this channel, we are doing 100 challenge subscribers, that each and every day we'll be in a position to at least get 100 subscribers. Now, the most important thing, the best way to do it is just to make sure, as you watch this video, just look at the notification bell there. Have you subscribed? If you realize you've not, click the subscription button, and then there is a notification bell there. Whenever I publish a video, you will be notified. We just want to grow. That it is not just about supporting others. I know we've always supported others, but the best you can do to support also me and to support this podcast is just helping me increase the subscription. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there are 3 reasons why UDA is very angry with the Catholic bishops. The Catholic have told UDA 2 things. Number 1, repeal some sections of finance bill that are being contested by the opposition. Number 2, they have also called out the police on use of excessive force, especially when neutralizing protests. But do you know why government is becoming very angry? Even the UN body and other stakeholders have been coming out to explain, or rather to call out the police on use of excessive force. Let us be very objective here. It is very true that it's Raila Odinga that charged the masses. But when the masses come out, it is the responsibility of government to ensure that there is peace, that the whole thing, they are given protection and the protest is peaceful. It is also very true that 90% of those losing their lives in protests are not being killed by protesters, but they're being killed by armed security officers. Let's not deny that fact. And that is why I feel all the stakeholders are calling the spade a spade. And calling the spade a spade is here. It is the security officers that are killing the protesters. The protesters are not killing themselves. And so, even as we complain, it is very clear we can complain that protesters are destroying the property. That can be there. But you cannot blame the protesters for killing fellow protesters. I don't think that is viable. Number 2, and they are a bit angry because clergy is speaking the same voice with the international bodies. The other second reason why there is that anger is the Catholic voice is backing the suspension of the finance bill. You know, even the courts, the Supreme Court bench that is going to decide the fate of that finance bill is also going to read the mood of Kenyans. They will also want to do what Kenyans want. They're also looking at it. So the more the church is coming to say, this is wrong, you need to look at it, the UDA is feeling that the suspension of the finance bill is getting backing even outside court. And the court will be left with no obligation but to make sure that they stick with what the law says, even if there will be an infiltration from the government side. The other third reason why there is the anger is the issue of unfulfilled promises hurts Ruto's legitimacy. The churches have also been saying that fulfill the promises that you said, because that is the core reason why Kenyans are protesting. And do not look here. We had the M-Pesa churches, the M-Pesa bishops that also were with William Ruto. What exactly happened? What exactly happened? They were never part. They've not been part of whatever has been going on in the country. And because they are quiet, UDA is also seeing very well that the mainstream churches is clearly taking up the space of the clergy, the space of the church in the political dispensation. The M-Pesa bishops and the evangelicals that campaigned and believed they did their best, or rather they brought God in the name of William Ruto to this country, they are quiet. And because the mainstream churches, the Catholic and the Anglicans are talking, they are slowly taking over the space of church in the political dispensation. And if they take that space, and they're already saying that there's a problem, UDA is seeing a nightmare. That's my take. But I do believe that rally was a bit unnecessary.